When Britain ruled a global empire, it did not always conquer with armies alone. Often, it conquered with paper, promises, agreements written far away from the land they described. In many parts of the world, Britain promised the same land to multiple people at the same time, not always out of malice, but out of distance, speed, and imperial habit. What looked like administration from London became chaos on the ground, and those promises shaped conflicts that still exist today. Britain governed an empire so large that no central authority could fully understand it. Decisions were made by officials who had never seen the places they controlled. Maps were incomplete. Cultures were unfamiliar. Borders were lines drawn for convenience, not reality. In this environment, land became an abstraction, something that could be granted, traded, or pledged without fully grasping who already lived there. Land was power. Whoever controlled land controlled taxes, labor, and loyalty. Britain used land promises to secure allies, reward cooperation, and stabilize rule. The same territory could be promised to settlers to encourage migration, to local elites to ensure obedience, and to foreign groups to gain strategic advantage. Each promise made sense in isolation. Together, they guaranteed conflict. In Ireland, land ownership was transformed through legal systems that favored British settlers and landlords. Native populations were displaced through law rather than open warfare. Titles overlapped, claims conflicted. Promises made to one group erased the rights of another. The result was not order, but generations of resentment rooted in ownership disputes that felt permanent. In North America, Britain promised land to settlers to encourage expansion, while simultaneously recognizing indigenous territories through treaties. These agreements often contradicted each other. Settlers believed they had legal rights granted by the Crown. Indigenous nations believed treaties guaranteed protection. Both were told the truth as far as Britain was concerned. The conflict was not accidental, it was structural. After wars, Britain promised land to soldiers as payment. Veterans expected farms and security, but the land was often already occupied or claimed. Administrators delayed, reinterpreted, or reassigned promises. Trust eroded. Rebellions followed. The empire struggled to satisfy commitments it never should have made simultaneously. The most famous example came in the Middle East. During World War I, Britain promised Arab leaders independence if they revolted against Ottoman rule. At the same time, Britain promised support for a Jewish homeland in the same region. Meanwhile, Britain negotiated with European allies to divide the territory for imperial administration. 3 incompatible promises, 1 land. Each promise served a short-term goal: secure military support, gain political favor, maintain strategic control. None were designed for coexistence. When the war ended, Britain inherited the consequences of its own paperwork. Lines drawn on maps became borders enforced by force. Communities that had lived side by side were turned into rivals competing for recognition promised to all. India experienced similar contradictions. Britain promised local princes autonomy while promising reformers representation. Land revenue systems redefined ownership, often ignoring traditional rights. Farmers paid taxes on land they no longer legally owned. Zamindars collected rents guaranteed by British law. Authority multiplied while responsibility blurred. Why did Britain do this? Partly because the empire valued flexibility over clarity. Promises were tools, not commitments. They could be revised, delayed, or denied when circumstances changed. What mattered was control in the moment, not stability in the future. Problems deferred were problems avoided, at least temporarily. Distance also mattered. Decisions took months to reach colonies. Conditions changed before policies arrived. Local officials improvised. Promises made on the ground conflicted with promises made in London. The empire functioned through delegation, but delegation created contradiction. There was also a deeper assumption. Britain believed its legal systems would eventually resolve disputes. Courts, documents, and administration were expected to replace custom and memory. But law cannot erase history. When multiple groups believe land was promised to them, paperwork does not heal the wound, it deepens it. As the empire weakened, these contradictions became impossible to manage. Britain began withdrawing, leaving behind unresolved claims. Independence arrived without agreement. New states inherited borders and promises they had not made and could not fulfill. Conflict did not begin with independence, it was revealed by it. Many modern disputes trace back to these overlapping promises. The land itself did not change, the expectations placed upon it did. People fought not only for territory, but for recognition of what they had been told was rightfully theirs. Britain did not set out to create permanent conflict. It sought efficiency, loyalty, and control. But an empire built on promises rather than understanding creates obligations that outlast power. When authority disappears, promises remain, unfulfilled and contested. History remembers armies and battles, but often forgets documents. Yet documents shape the world more quietly and more permanently. Britain ruled by ink as much as by force, and when the ink dried, the consequences remained. The lesson is not that Britain was uniquely deceptive. It is that empires operating at scale cannot make promises without contradiction. When land becomes a political instrument rather than a lived reality, it will be promised more than once. And when everyone has been promised the same land, conflict becomes inevitable, not because people are violent, but because promises were made that could never be kept at the same time.